I want to read something to you from a New York Times reporter. He's been very closely watching what's happening in Minneapolis and the behavior of ICE agents. And he writes, I was looking at photos from federal operations in Minneapolis over the last week, and this one picture stood out. Tiana Brown is standing in the driveway. Tiana Brown is standing in the driveway, obviously in distress. She's wearing what appears to be scrubs. She has Crocs on, and she's holding her phone in her hand. These agents are basically dressed for an imminent threat. There are pieces of equipment on these agents' weapons that seem more at home on the battlefield. And here they are on the doorstep of a woman's house in Minneapolis. I cover gun culture and policy. His name is Tom Gibson. Before that, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years and deployed twice to Afghanistan. With the last 20 to 25 years, wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, and Somalia, technology that was used in those wars has kind of migrated into the police force. In this photo, there are two suppressors. And the suppressor, also commonly known as a silencer, that was something that just kind of jumped out at me. They protect your hearing. They protect you from concussive blasts coming out of your rifle. This is something that you would want to have at the end of your rifle barrel if you are in a house shooting in close quarters. When I was in the military, we were on the front line and we had wanted suppressors for my team, but they weren't deemed important enough at the time. This kind of stuff is usually reserved for SWAT teams, hostage rescue teams, high threat environments. One of the things that is interesting on two of these rifles is this thing called the B.E. Myers WL. It's a daylight laser and an infrared laser that only you can see behind night vision. Things maybe you consider when you're jumping out of a helicopter into bin Laden's compound in Pakistan in 2011. It's that kind of technology juxtaposed with the doorstep. Video from the scene kind of showed a disorganized mess with a lot of yelling. There are kids in the house. Show the warrant first. But I think that's kind of par for the course when you have people who are on the street, opposed to operations. You have people in the house who are scared, and you have agents who are heavily armed. The agents arrest her husband. 4 days later, he was ordered to be released as his Fourth Amendment rights had been violated. As you mentioned, this looked completely chaotic, disorganized. Those ICE agents are out of control. They are armed to the teeth with weapons of war. To invade a family's home, despite the fact that none of these people was armed, in violation of their Fourth Amendment rights to unlawful search and seizure. They didn't have a warrant. The husband was arrested and detained for 4 days before he was released. This is the kind of situation that people in Minneapolis are experiencing daily. The federal government is acting like Minneapolis is an occupied territory, and the people in that city have no rights. None. Apparently, they don't have the First Amendment right to protest peacefully or exercise their free speech. They don't have the Second Amendment right to carry legally licensed firearms. They don't have the Fourth Amendment right protecting them from unlawful search and seizure. They don't have a right to due process, whichever amendment that is. I'm sorry, I forgot. They don't have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as outlined in the Declaration of Independence. This does not seem like a regime to be negotiated with. I say, demand, don't negotiate. Demand, don't compromise. The Democrats in Congress, the Democrats in the Senate have leverage. There's a budget coming due that must be passed in order to keep the government open, in order to prevent a shutdown. A deal must be reached. The Republicans have the majority in the Senate. Any shutdown that occurs is down to them and their intransigence and their refusal to negotiate with Democrats. It is not the Democrats who should be giving any ground here. And yet, despite the fact that we have been hearing that Senate Democrats will refuse to fund ICE and the Department of Homeland Security today. It looks like Senate Democrats, according to the New York Times, quote, have struck a deal with Republicans and the White House to pass 5 spending bills to fund a large portion of the government for the remainder of the fiscal year, as well as a stopgap measure to fund the Department of Homeland Security for 2 weeks while they continue negotiating guardrails to rein in immigration agents. Unquote. Why? Chuck Schumer was negotiating with Donald Trump, the man who was responsible for the horrors being unleashed upon the citizens of this country and those who are here simply to find a better life. Immigrants who have built this country. Why negotiate with terrorists? That is something we were told we should never, ever do. And yet, they continue to do it. 2 more weeks to fund an agency that is responsible for horrors unleashed upon children, upon immigrants and undocumented workers who have been detained, who have been disappeared to gulags in other countries, who are responsible for the murders of 2 American citizens. What more do we need to know that these are people with whom we do not negotiate? These are people from whom we demand what is right, what is just. Democrats, get your act together. What else do you need? What more evidence do you need that the other side does not operate in good faith ever? Stand up for us. Fight for us. Show us that you understand finally, at last, for once and for all, what is at stake. Let's dive in. Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. I'm a little riled up, perhaps, for reasons. Yeah, it's been a year and it's been a week. It's Thursday, I think. I should probably stop trying to know what day it is. I think that'll just be simpler. Okay, so in the midst of the horrors, Donald held another cabinet meeting today, and it was filled with the usual nonsense, lies, propaganda, disinformation that we've become accustomed to with the Trump regime. But there was something different. He didn't take any questions from the media. He still, unfortunately for the rest of us who care about our sanity, had a lot to say. Take a look.
12 months of unprecedented achievements. We really have. I mean, it's unprecedented. The numbers we've had on the economy and growth, you see them. And that's despite a Democrat shutdown. Without the shutdown, we would have picked up about 1.5 points more than already high numbers, record-setting numbers. So this has been, I think, and a lot of people say it, the most successful year of any administration in American history. First year, there's never been a first year like this, including the fact that we put out, extinguished 8 wars, and another one we think is coming. Steve Witkoff's working very hard, and Jared and everybody else, and I think it's coming.
Oh, so much to say. First of all, was that Marco Rubio or a mirror image of Donald Trump? Well, I guess that's the costume they're all wearing. Also, Jared, did anybody vote for him? Did the Senate confirm him to any position? No, not that I'm aware of. But there's what Donald says, and then there's reality. So let's check in on reality, shall we? The job numbers, for example, that came out this week. Here's a report from essentially what is state TV Newsmax.
New jobless claim numbers are out. They are higher than expected, about 209,000 people filed for unemployment benefits last week, which is a small drop from the week before, but it still is above forecast.
According to NBC News, the U.S. economy added only 50,000 jobs last month, closing out the weakest year for hiring since 2020. Something happened in 2020. Oh, shit. Yes, we had a global pandemic. Weakest jobs numbers since 2020. And it wasn't just us that were impacted during COVID. It was the global economy that ground to a halt. So excluding 2020, the last year the market slowed, the last year that marked the slowest pace of job growth since 2009, the financial crisis, remember, was last year. So things aren't exactly going as swimmingly as Donald would have us believe. And I think, hopefully, this is the beginning of his losing control of the narrative. Because again, when it comes to the fascistic tactics of ICE, for which he is responsible, when it comes to our deeply troubled economy, for which he is responsible, people are actually believing their own eyes and their own lived experiences and dismissing out of hand his stupid and increasingly unbelievable lies. Did you know that the 2020 election isn't over yet? Yeah. Fun times. Last night, Kash Patel's FBI, well, I think we should call it Donald's FBI, actually. But, tomato, tomato. The FBI executed a court-authorized search warrant. I'd love to know who that judge is. I don't remember. I need to go find that out. A court-authorized search warrant at the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center in Union City, Georgia, seizing materials related to the 2020 presidential election, which Donald continues to believe or pretend to believe he won, even though he lost the popular vote by almost 8 million. They seized ballots, ballot envelopes, tabulator tapes, ballot images, and voter rolls. This, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Fulton County officials and Georgia leaders said they were not notified in advance of the raid, which resulted in the removal of roughly 700 boxes of ballots from storage. The court-ordered activity immediately triggered political and legal backlash over the administration's blatant efforts to exert control over elections in Georgia's largest and most Democratic county, and to frame the 2020 election as stolen. Because again, Donald is a complete loser who cannot accept the fact that he lost a free and fair election to his opponent, Joe Biden, who can no longer be called Sleepy Joe Biden because last I checked, Donald is president and he's the one who keeps falling asleep. Here's Georgia Senator John Ossoff speaking to Jen Psaki last night.
This is a seismic event. This should have people across the country absolutely shook. This is a huge deal. This is an FBI raid on the Fulton County Elections Office. His conspiracy theories about the 2020 election have been based in Georgia from the very start. Georgia is where he called the Secretary of State and said, find me the votes that he needed to win in a state he had lost. So much of the big lie that led to the January 6th sacking of the United States Capitol, that had a mob seeking the Speaker of the House and the Vice President to lynch them, originated in his lies about the state of Georgia. And here he has the FBI, which there are so many hardworking, diligent public servants in FBI field offices all across the country, but its headquarters now in the thrall of these political appointees, Kash Patel and Bongino and this guy from Missouri in the deputy role, who are partisan political actors, raiding this election office in Georgia, seizing all of this information, all of these records, taking it who knows where, chain of custody now broken. And here's the thing. This is a shot across the bow at the midterm elections. He tried to steal power when he lost it in 2020. We have to be prepared for all kinds of schemes and shenanigans. We have to be prepared for him to try to deprive people of their voting rights.
Of course we do, because Donald is openly admitting he now regrets not having called in the National Guard to seize the voting machines in Georgia when it became clear that Georgia had voted to elect Joe Biden. This is all of a piece with what Attorney General Pam Bondi is doing in Minnesota. She's essentially extorting Governor Walz of Minnesota in order to get access to the voter rolls there. She's literally said, you give us what we want, voter roll information, information about recipients of SNAP and Medicaid benefits, et cetera, then we'll pull ICE out of your state, which gives the lie to the Trump regime's bullshit that they actually care about the safety of American citizens and getting rid of the worst of the worst. They just want the information about voters. That's what's happening here. So yes, we should all be on our guard. Speaking of Minnesota, after sending in the fascist mass police force, ICE, to terrorize the state, it became clear that the Trump regime's agenda all along was to bully the state, as I just mentioned, into handing over the voter rolls to influence the next election, which is the 2026 election, the 2026 midterm, which, as we should know by now, is taking on the kind of significance that is difficult to quantify. The so-called toning down of ICE attacks on citizens of that state is not working. There is no substantive shift in policy. There is no accountability. Just remember, the murderers of Renee Good and Alex Preddy are back on the job, just elsewhere. All of this is about damage control. It's about getting ahead of bad headlines. Donald, in other words, doesn't like what he's seeing on TV. Here's Governor Tim Walz speaking to MS Now.
I know why the president called and saw this. He didn't call because I talked to the White House. I talked to Tom Homan. I talked to numerous people. And not once did they ever say Alex or Renee's name. Not once did they ask how the people of Minnesota were doing. So, look, I know who I'm dealing with. And I know the reason that he was calling me was he needed something from us. He needed it not because this is a horrific situation of a violation of human rights, the potential murder of Minnesotans, an assault on our state that is unprecedented, I think, in American history. The reason he was calling was his poll numbers dropped and it looked bad on TV. And I know that.
Thank you for knowing that. Democrats, pay attention. Because if we allow Donald and Homan and Noam to convince people that they're actually reaching out and moderating their stance and willing to negotiate and change their tone, then we lose. I have never, ever experienced in my life anybody who is least deserving of the benefit of the doubt of Donald, and that is now true of his entire administration. Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis spoke today at the Conference of Mayors winter meeting in Washington, D.C., where he addressed fellow city leaders about the federal immigration enforcement actions that have been impacting his city. This is what he had to say.
In Minneapolis, we've heard them say that they will end this siege when we hand over voter rolls. We've seen them attack and invade not just with this occupation, but also with the Department of Justice being used as a weapon. They're investigating me. and several other local elected officials, not because we've done something wrong, but because we have exhibited one of the core responsibilities that both I and you have as mayors. And that is the core and foundational responsibility to speak on behalf of your constituents. I'm going to continue to speak on behalf of my constituents. We won't be intimidated in Minneapolis.
Let's not be intimidated anywhere, including the Senate and the House of Representatives. After the demotion and removal of fascist Greg Bovino from Minneapolis, the regime brought in border czar and fascist Tom Homan to restore order, even though he has been one of the most incendiary figures in the immigration, the assault on immigrants in this country. Homan held a press conference at 7 this morning at the B.H. Whipple building just outside of Minneapolis and said that federal deportation efforts in Minneapolis have been flawed and need improvement. He also suggested that a drawdown of federal agents could occur if local officials allow immigration agents access to local jails. A demand that Governor Walz has said repeatedly they have been complying with all along, which makes me wonder why, of course. But anyway, Homan said, quote, "I'm not here because the federal government has carried out this mission perfectly. Certain improvements could and should be made," unquote. That is not exactly an admission of guilt. That is not exactly an accurate depiction of what happened because of people like Homan, because of people like Bovino, because of people like Noman, because of people like Donald. Here are some of Homan's other remarks.
Everybody I've spoken with agrees that if somebody has a violent criminal history and is a fugitive, they don't want them as their neighbor. But when you're talking about a targeted operation, and are you talking about targeting people whose crime is coming to this country, or is it a more specific definition now?
All operations will be targeted, but the prioritization are going to be criminal aliens, public safety threats, and national security threats. I've met with Marcos and his staff. We got a lot of them. We got a lot of them to keep us busy. So that would be our focus.
But that is enough that's what, there is not going to be a focus on people who have no other crimes except for their status.
If you're in the country illegally, you're never off the table. But privatization doesn't mean you forget about everybody. So let me say this. If the message we send is you can enter this country illegally, it's a crime, don't worry about it. You can have your due process, show up in court, not show up in court, get ordered removed, don't worry about it. Unless you commit a serious crime, you're good to go. If that's the message we send to the world, you're never going to fix this problem.
Really? Tell that to all of the people you've terrorized, you Nazi, including the 5-year-old who's being detained in Texas, including to the 2 American citizens you've murdered, and all of the other people whose lives you have damaged, destroyed. So all of this begs the question, will Democrats finally and at long last stand firm against ICE funding ICE, I should say? As I mentioned at the top of the show, bipartisan senators blocked a 6-bill federal spending package as negotiations continued in order to avert a partial government shutdown, which was expected at the end of the week. All Senate Democrats voted against advancing the bill, pressing for changes to ICE policy following Alex Pretty's fatal encounter, which is to say, Alex Pretty's murder at the hand of federal agents in Minneapolis. And they demanded that DHS funding be split off for renegotiation. But 7 Republicans joined Democrats in the 45-55 vote, and Senate Majority Leader John Thune switched his vote no to preserve the option of reconsideration. Without a unanimous consent to separate DHS funding, several major agencies, including Defense, HHS, Labor, Education, Transportation, and HUD, could face funding lapses. So any deal would still require House approval, potentially delaying final passage until Monday. It's all a bit of a mess because Democrats need to be more clear. Democrats need to be united, totally united in this endeavor to stop totally and resoundingly what the Trump regime is doing to this country. Today, the Justice Department charged a man accused of trying to spray Ilhan Omar with a substance which, as it turns out, was presumably apple cider vinegar during a town hall meeting in Minneapolis on Tuesday night. NBC News reports the suspect faces a count alleging he forcibly, quote, forcibly assaulted, opposed, impeded, intimidated, and interfered, unquote, with the congresswoman while she was engaged in official duties. An FBI affidavit says the suspect had previously threatened Omar, telling a close associate years ago that somebody should kill that word starting with B that I will not say. Donald, of course, dismissed the attack as a fraud and claimed that Omar probably had herself sprayed, which is his latest example of blaming the victim, but is particularly obnoxious because he has been targeting Ilhan Omar for years. He's been attacking Somali Americans in general for a very long time and specifically going after her in a way that puts a massive target on her back. I'm actually surprised she hasn't been attacked before this. There has to be a way to stop this insanity. The president of the United States targeting other people is unacceptable. He has to be held accountable for this, if for nothing else. As the attacker of Ilhan Omar was pulled from the town hall, he shouted that she was, quote unquote, splitting us apart. Yeah, which echoes rhetoric Donald, the man most responsible for splitting us apart, had used against her only moments earlier at a rally in Iowa. This is the same tactic he used after the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good in Minneapolis. Blame the victims. Tell people not to believe their own eyes. As I said, the First, Second, and Fourth Amendments only apply to the right. Everyone else is treated as a target. And whatever happens to them, well, you deserve it. The Trump regime, much like Donald, takes no responsibility for anything it does and is never held to account. All of this is deliberate. For a more in-depth look at the Trump regime's blame the victim tendencies, please check out my interview with Sarah Ewald Weiss at the Daily Beast from earlier this week. It's available on YouTube. It's also available on the Mary Trump podcast. Oh, look, there it is. That's the Mary Trump podcast. It is January 29th, and it has been a year, has it not? I'm trying to figure out how we're going to pace ourselves. One way to do that, first of all, is to remember to breathe. So please breathe deeply and inhale completely. And now we're a day away from Friday. And I know it doesn't matter anymore because we don't really have weekends anymore. But let's pretend. Let's take a second to chill and return to, as what you know is one of my favorite things, the sea and the sea at sunset. Because as a kid, I went to sailing camp in Cape Cod, on Cape Cod Bay. And it's, I think, the only place on the East Coast where you can see the sunset over water because Cape Cod curves around. and faces west. Where I was, faces west. So the sunset over the ocean, or in my case, the bay, is one of my favorite things. Plus, of course, the sound of the waves, the way the light fades, the way the colors change. A reminder that there is still so much beauty in this world. There is so much worth preserving. So let's please take a moment and soak in it. All right. That energizes me as well as grounding me. So hope that worked for you as well. And now let us get to your questions, comments, etc. Okay. Linda gifted 1 Marriage Trump Media membership. Thank you so very much for that. Much appreciated. Mida Cheryl, thank you as always. This is for the Joe Colorado Swear Jar / Petri / 2026 Thrifty Fee. I need to know more, but thank you. Libby is a new member. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you here. Frownhuffs, thank you as always. Comment, thank you, Mary and the Mary Trump Media team. Linda, thank you for gifting another Mary Trump Media membership. Fantastic. Elizabeth, thank you very much. Question: does anyone, staff, chat, or Mary, know what got thrown at Ilhan Omar? Yeah, again, as I said, they believe it was a non-toxic substance, what's it called? Apple cider vinegar. So, not harmful, but she didn't know that at the time. So he has been convicted of assault, which is as it should be. And you know who else should be convicted of assault? Or at least stochastic terrorism? Donald. Richard, thank you very much as always, Richard. Comment. I'll never get over Ilhan Omar getting ready to throw hands Tuesday. She was ready to beat his ass. Minnesota's lucky to have her. Hell yeah, Ilhan. Yeah, she handled it. Well, you know what? She handled it like somebody who knew this was coming. And who has a lot of guts. In the middle of nowhere, thank you as always for that. Truly. Comment, never stop trying to know what day it is. I'd feel so alone. I have to check my phone every morning. Yikes, we're fucked. Donation to JC Swear Jar. Why would there be a chain of custody violation in Georgia? Who knows? Who knows? I mean, there are corrupt judges everywhere who are Donald's pocket and willing to do his bidding. So who knows? I just hope by now the American people are not falling for this. Medusa Buddha, wow, super sticker. Thank you so much. That's really generous of you. I appreciate it. Susan, thank you as always for getting 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. Soul Assassino, thank you very much. Comment, hey Mary. Oh, question, sorry. Hey, Mary, what are your thoughts on former Governor Jesse Ventura, who's back on the spotlight due to the terror in his native Minnesota? I don't know. I mean, good for him that he's speaking up. He's never been something he's never been somebody I've followed really. I've never understood the whole intersection between pop culture and American politics, really. So, again, I'm glad he's speaking up because the more people we have doing that, the better. DPD 5844 comment: January 30th, 2026 is National Shutdown Day. No work, no school, no shopping. Yeah, I mean that's good, but we need to organize much more extensively in order for that to stick. Like that has to be something we gear up to for a long time, weeks if not months. We are going to need a general strike, a total shutdown in this country at some point. And it's not something that's going to happen, overnight. We need to prepare. So, because there are ways in which we need to get ready. How do you get ready for a general strike? Because we need to be ready to go for days and potentially weeks. It's not just a one-day thing. So, I applaud any effort to slow things down, but the only thing that is going to stop the madness and really shift the direction this country is going in is if we shut it all down for as long as it takes in a concerted, unified way. M. Kelpie 3513, comment: I'm feeling bad for the cleaning crew. They just introduced a barrel of ketchup. Yeah, no kidding. Because, Donald does not care who has to clean up after him. Myra, comment: you can see the sunset from various islands here in South Carolina too. Yes, islands. Yes, absolutely true. Because, islands. But I meant mainland. So I should have been more specific because Cape Cod is an isthmus. I can't say that word. You know what I'm trying to say? Isthmus. I can't pronounce it. My apologies. Somebody say it for me. My goodness. Michael, comment: I see Josh Shapiro is asking for money for his reelection campaign. If he is serious, he would quit his unfettered support for Israel and quit taking AIPAC money. I didn't know he did, and if that's the case, that's deeply disappointing, and he needs to stop it. Paul, thank you very much, Paul. Comment: the phrase "that dog don't hunt" used for ridiculous lies. Someone should tell Donald he should politely decline any invite for a quiet walk in the country from Christendom. Yeah, no kidding. Although they're both horrible, so who cares what happens in the woods? Jojo is a new member. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Michael, comment: strong women are a threat to Donald. Yeah, they are. He hates strong women. He's afraid of them. Robert, question: why is Donald worried? Worried about old vote rolls from 5 years ago? I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's. He's trying to take away Epstein file news. That's not. Yeah, I mean, it's all about distraction. It's all about distraction and protecting his pathetic little ego. Let's not fall for it, shall we? Rob Law, comment: the Georgia election rate is the end of free and fair elections. There's no going back now. I don't know that that's true, but it's dangerous and it's awful. But we need to expose it and we need to see it for what it is. And Georgia, I don't care who you are. If you're a Republican, a Democrat, independent, whatever. If you're a politician in Georgia and you are not out there decrying this absolutely lawless behavior, then you're part of the problem. Richard, comment in Canada, we're absolutely furious about Renee Good and Alex Preddy seething. We have your back, and many of us Canadians already consider ourselves to be members of the resistance, and we have your backs too. Elbows up, Canada. You guys rock. Thank you, and I'm deeply sorry. Truly. Michael, question: how would Donald cope if he were required to do group therapy for crimes? He just spent his time talking about how great he is. Or sleeping. Also a potential possibility. Bill, thank you so much, Bill. Question, Mary, with Donald's vanity, do you think any part of him is embarrassed by the Davos speech? No. No, because he's incapable of recognizing how embarrassing it was. And two, he's surrounded by a bunch of weak sycophants who told him how awesome it was. So, yeah, he's not listening to us. Excuse me. Rob Law, question, who was that judge that signed the Georgia warrant? Her name is Catherine Salinas, but I don't know who appointed her. She was reappointed to an second 8-year term in July 1st, 2023, which would have been the Biden administration. So I don't know who originally appointed her. It may have been Donald, for all I know. But if so, well done, President Biden. Jana, thank you so much. As always, comment, happy Kansas Day to celebrate our senators embarrassed us again. Yes, they're quite good at that down there, aren't they? You know what's worse? Having two Democratic senators in a very blue state who continue to embarrass us. Yes, thank Gillibrand and Schumer. Grumpy Cat XX, comment, no work, no school, no shopping, and definitely no tickets for the Melania movie, as if any of us would dare. Do not get me started. Joanna is a new member. Thank you so much, Joanna, and welcome. Susan, thank you again, as always. Comment, join us on Mary's Substack, The Good in Us. Awesome one-on-one live interviews and insightful newsletters. Great community. Thank you, Susan. That is https:// basically just www.barrytrump.org. Love to have you guys over there. Professor Food, cool. Thank you very much. Comment, George Dems, keep on an eye on your registration status. I fear a targeted purge of polls. Yeah, and last I checked, Senator John Ossoff is up for re-election, so let's be very, very careful there. Philip, question, Mary, do you know that the regime is engaging in foreign interference in Canada? They're funding Alberta's separatist campaign. I didn't know it, but I'm certainly not surprised. Yeah, just Donald interfering in the government of another country once again. I guess kidnapping Nicolas Maduro was not enough. CBB 3479, comment, Minnesota citizens rock and are loved. Yes, indeed. I co-signed that heartily. All right, that does it for us. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. To everybody watching on YouTube, streaming on Twitter, and over at our Substack, The Good in Us, thank you. And thank you to everybody listening to the podcast version of this. Please do check out the podcast. I think you'll like it. We've revamped it, and it's really cool. And it's available anywhere. Literally, you can find a podcast. To all of our new members, people gifting memberships, our super stickers, and people giving us donations, thank you. Truly, you are so appreciated. To our amazing moderators who just do this incredible work just because they're awesome, thank you. Easiest way to support us is subscribe to the channel, click on the bell icon, and click all. That way you will be alerted every single time a new video drops. We don't just have lives. We have videos coming out every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, honestly. And if you click all, you'll be alerted. So you'll know. If you're not getting alerted, just come to the page every single day. YouTube is not our friend. So let's defy them and make sure that we're staying on top of things. Another easy way to support us is watch those pre-recorded videos, like them, share them, and comment on them, because that helps us with the algorithm. And as Susan just said, please go to our Substack, The Good in Us, marytrump.org. Check it out. We have content there pretty much every single day, sometimes more than once a day. We have interviews. We have transcripts from Mary Trump Live, and I write a fair number of posts there every week. It's an amazing community. I would like to have more overlap between this amazing community and that one. Also, we're on Patreon, and we have really cool merch that's Patreon. So just go to that QR code, and the merch is at check out that QR code. It's really cool. It's really cool. So wear it, show your support. And, the fact that you're not voting for fascists, you read bad books, and you understand where fake news goes to die, which is here at Mary Trump Media. Finally, thank you to my most amazing team, without whom I could not do any of this, truly. I love it when you guys show your love for them. So do that more, please, because they deserve it. All right. I will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Mary Trump Live. All of you, please come back. And in the meantime, stay safe and be kind. Bye.